Well, I didn't really think this was a novel. I think you'd have to invent a new term for this, something like a sort of nov play or a screenal.
Margaret Atwood's book first. Alain de Botton, The Blind Assassin. Quite a complicated book. Margaret Atwood just began to indicate it. What did you make of the complication first and then the book?
The complication, well, I mean, the book begins tremendously so. I think we noticed in that excerpt, I mean, I was certainly slightly falling asleep, and for the first 150 pages, this was excruciatingly painful. I'd never read a Margaret Atwood book, and I vowed that I would never read another one again. This really was painful. At some level, as a novelist, you have to think about the pleasure of your reader, and Margaret Atwood, for the first 150 pages, just doesn't do it. She doesn't care. It's almost a kind of rudeness. It's saying, you know, my story is more important, whether you understand it or not, I don't care. It's rather like eating, I don't know, bran flakes or something. You know it's good for you, but it's really tough going, and I wonder whether the price is really worth paying.
And the winner of the first Booker Prize of the 21st century, for 3 times the bridesmaid, now the bride, Margaret Atwood.
I have to say, not to be perverse or obvious here, that it does strike me as really the turkey, the only one that I think ought not to be on a short. I think it's poorly written. I think, you know, very, very basic lessons in how you put a sentence together, what ugly sounds are to avoid and so on, aren't learned. I think the plot's transparent. I think it's bad. It's written with bad faith. And it's I'm just suggesting where I stand, more or less, on the book.
The winner of the 1989 Booker Prize for Fiction is Kazuo Ishiguro for The Remains of the Day.
Can you tell us what you thought of Ian McEwan's Amsterdam?
Well, I didn't really think this was a novel. I think you'd have to invent a new term for this, something like a sort of nov play or a screenal. It was kind of halfway between being a novel and a screenplay. I mean, just to give it you cold, it took me 1 hour and 53 minutes to read this, during which time I also completed a bank transaction and looked after a 12-month-old baby. So, you know, I mean, all one can really ask of the novel as a form nowadays at this fag end of the century is that it somehow arrests your attention span. It forces you to think. I don't care if it does it by clotted language. I don't care if it does it by plotting, by allusion, by fact. Don't care. I just want it to arrest me and keep me involved in something for longer than 1 hour and 53 minutes. So the number of themes, because McEwan attempts to deal here with the bowdlerization of the British media, he attempts to deal with profound moral choices about euthanasia, so on and so forth, are all by the by. Everything is subsumed to this onward rush. I mean, I believe some of the critics said they couldn't put it down. Well, you can't put it down because you can't hold it up for long enough to not put it down. So very disappointing, I think, a very disappointing book.
The winner of the 1988 Booker Prize is Ian McEwan for the novel Amsterdam.
Booker Prize for fiction with his short novel Amsterdam, a macabre tale of powerless and ambition overriding friendship. This is obviously going to be a very welcome award to McEwan fans, and must surely feel that he's now being rewarded for what's been an extraordinarily illustrious and a prolific career. Of course, he's been nominated twice before, and rather controversially overlooked.
And yet that's the strength of the book in a way. I think a wonderful book to give as a present, but not...
To whom?
Not perhaps...
Eric, clearly, I can see from your face you would not like it as a present.
No, I'd give it back to you. Well, I think it's a novel written by somebody who's not an artist. What
does that mean?
Well, it's the sort of novel that I'd write, you see, if I was foolish enough not to know that I couldn't write a good novel. It's the sort of novel that's written by somebody who's done A-level courses, taught them and taken them in what novels are like. That is, novels have recurrent patterns of poetic imagery. Recurrent patterns of poetic imagery right through. See something made out of green glass in this book, you might just think it was a little green glass object. But no, it will recur in a significant way. The whole book is put together with this tedious Lego-like construction of cross-references between the 19th and 20th century. It's really very easy it becomes predictable and dull. I think it's, it's clearly the work of a thinking person. She's trying to think about some quite interesting questions about the ways in which people are trapped in the different ways in which they talk about love in a 19th century way or a 20th century way, and that there's no freedom, no simply free discourse. But I think as a novel, it's an absolute disaster.
That the winner is A.S. Byatt, Possession.
Unreadable.
Why?
I think that there's a problem with the construction, and I think it's a problem of point of view. I think it's really a book that is extremely crudely written and presented.
The Bone People by Keri Hulme.